Welcome back to The Lost Tactician, where we uncover the forgotten strategies that shape survival across centuries. Today we're investigating an ancient war against decay. Modern wood preservatives are failing us. Your deck rots within a decade. Historical buildings crumble despite chemical treatment. Pressure-treated lumber leaches toxins while still succumbing to moisture and insects. But centuries before synthetic chemistry, certain Native American cultures had mastered a preservation technique so sophisticated that their structures have outlasted anything we build today. This is the story of smoke curing, a lost art that modern science is only beginning to understand. The modern preservation crisis. Walk through any hardware store and you'll find shelves lined with timber treatments promising decades of protection. Copper-based preservatives, creosote, chemical cocktails with names that read like weapons-grade compounds. Yet despite, billions spent every year, the global construction industry faces a persistent enemy: timber rot. Decay-related damage actually costs more than $20 billion each year in the United States alone. Modern pressure-treated lumber, well, it typically fails within 15 to 20 years when exposed to ground contact and moisture. These chemical treatments, unfortunately, create environmental hazards, leaching heavy metals and synthetic compounds into soil and water systems. Meanwhile, archaeologists continue to unearth Native American timber structures, longhouses, fish weirs, totem poles, that have endured for centuries in some of the harshest, most moisture-saturated environments on the continent. What if ancient knowledge holds solutions that contemporary science has overlooked? Ancient wisdom, like the smoke-curing tradition. Across diverse landscapes of North America, from the cedar forests of the Pacific Northwest to the hardwood groves of the Northeast, Indigenous cultures developed timber preservation techniques that relied on intimate knowledge of wood properties and combustion chemistry. The Haida and Tlingit peoples created massive cedar longhouses and intricately carved totem poles that still stand today, some dating back over 200 years. The Iroquois Confederacy constructed longhouses using smoke-cured timber frameworks that supported entire communities through brutal northeastern winters. Archaeological evidence from the Great Lakes region reveals fish weirs and storage platforms built with smoke-treated wood that, remarkably, remained functional for generations. These structures represented a sophisticated understanding of preservation science, achieved through centuries of observation, experimentation, and cultural knowledge transmission. The techniques varied by region and tribe, but the fundamental principle remained consistent. Controlled exposure to specific types of smoke could fundamentally alter wood's vulnerability to biological agents of decay. The effectiveness of Native American smoke curing begins with wood selection, but honestly it extends far beyond it. Cedar, particularly western red cedar, and northern white cedar, was prized in regions where it grew naturally. These species contain natural oils and compounds like thujaplicins that resist decay, but indigenous builders recognized that even cedar could be enhanced. The curing process typically involved multiple stages, beginning with selective harvesting during seasons when sap content was lowest, reducing the wood's attractiveness to insects and fungi. The true sophistication emerged in the smoking process itself. This wasn't simply exposing wood to any fire. Specific fuel sources were chosen based on the smoke compounds they produced. Green wood and partially rotted material were deliberately selected for smoking fuel because they smolder at lower temperatures, producing dense, chemical-rich smoke rather than hot, consuming flames. This smoldering combustion releases phenolic compounds, organic acids, and creosote-like substances that penetrate deep into the wood's cellular structure. These compounds act as natural fungicides and insecticides, filling the microscopic spaces where moisture and microorganisms would otherwise take hold. In regions where charring was practiced, a technique remarkably similar to the Japanese yakisugi method, builders would carefully burn the surface layer of timber, particularly sections destined for ground contact. This carbonization process transforms the wood's outer cellulose into a carbon-rich barrier. The fuel selection varied by region and available resources. Pacific Northwest tribes often used older and specific cedar variants for smoking. Northeastern peoples employed birch, hickory, and oak. Southwestern cultures utilized mesquite and local hardwoods. Where modern science falls short, contemporary chemical treatments operate on fundamentally different principles than smoke curing. Pressure-treated lumber works by forcing chemical preservatives deep into wood under extreme pressure, creating a hostile environment for biological decay agents. However, these chemicals don't chemically bond with the wood structure itself. Over time, weathering, moisture cycling, and ultraviolet exposure leach these compounds away, leaving the wood vulnerable once again. The protective barrier diminishes with each rain, each freeze-thaw cycle, each season of exposure. Smoke-cured timber, by contrast, undergoes actual chemical transformation. The phenolic compounds from smoke form permanent bonds with lignin and cellulose structures. The carbonized surface layer created through charring isn't a coating that can be stripped away, it's the wood itself transformed at the molecular level. Rediscovery and modern applications. Recent years have witnessed growing interest in replicating traditional smoke-curing methods for contemporary use. Sustainable architecture firms have begun experimenting with adapted versions of indigenous techniques, particularly for outdoor construction, where environmental concerns make chemical treatments problematic. Lessons in indigenous innovation. The story of Native American smoke curing extends beyond timber preservation into larger questions about how we value different forms of knowledge. Smoke curing represents empirical science of the highest order. Systematic observation, hypothesis testing, refinement across generations, and practical application that achieves results contemporary chemistry struggles to match. This wasn't luck, it was engineering, materials science, and chemistry, practiced through different methodologies but reaching sophisticated conclusions about how natural compounds interact with organic materials. As we face mounting environmental crises, the wisdom embedded in traditional practices offers more than just historical curiosity. It provides proven, time-tested alternatives that work with natural systems rather than against them. Smoke-cured timber, for instance, biodegrades naturally at the end of its useful life without leaching toxins. It requires no ongoing chemical maintenance and, well, no specialized disposal either. The structures built by Native American cultures using smoke-cured timber stand as monuments to a fundamentally different relationship with materials and the natural world. They remind us that progress isn't always linear, that newer doesn't automatically mean better, and that, the challenges we face today may have been solved generations ago by people whose knowledge we've too often ignored. If this exploration of indigenous innovation resonated with you, just hit that like button and share this video with others who value the intersection of history, science, and practical wisdom. Subscribe to The Lost Tactician for more deep dives into how our ancestors solved problems we still struggle with today. Because honestly, sometimes the most revolutionary ideas come from looking backward. Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and remember that true tactical thinking learns from every source, especially those history tried to silence.